Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did it once again. I broke the patient gamer code.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
And it was all due to the captivating screenshots and gameplay footage I've seen of Manor Lords, a newly released medieval city builder that appeared to be right up my alley. And for some icing on the cake, it was published by Hooded Horse, the same guys that published the magnificent Against the Storm, one of my favorite releases this year. Check out my video if you're interested, as Against the Storm is a must-play for any city building fans out there. But why would I break my patient gaming code, or guidelines, for an early access release? Well, it's quite simple. I did my due diligence, yeah. I looked into the game and decided that it was something worth giving a shot. But what made me really pull the purchasing trigger was that I discovered Manor Lords being the product of one man, Greg Styczeń, under his studio Slavic Magic. Yep, this dude is the sole developer. And call me a softie at heart, but as someone who dabbled in indie game development myself some years ago, when I see a game that just one person developed themselves, I tend to get a bit misty in the eyes, if you know what I mean. And it really warmed my heart and rustled my undies when I saw that this dude's little project became the #1 wishlisted game on Steam, capping out at over 3 million wishlisted on its early access release. That's insane. It even beat Hades 2 in that regard, yeah! So I decided to show my support and give Mr. Styczeń my hard-earned monies and take the time to enjoy his hard work. And enjoyed I did, my friends, for Manor Lords is a very fun, innovative, charming, ambitious, and fairly unique city-building strategy game. But is it worth your hard-earned money and time in its current early access state? Well, take a seat and maybe I can answer that for you, you sexy gamer you. For starters, I had zero technical issues with Manor Lords. No frame rate drops, no bugs, no glitches. The game simply ran flawlessly for me on max settings, which was very much a surprise, especially coming from a single indie dev. I hung out at around 100 frames per second the entire time. Perhaps others have had issues, I don't know. All I can say is that it ran perfectly for me, so we can get that out of the way. How an indie dev can pull that off but a AAA studio can't, I have no idea. The game also has some real charm to it. You can build yourself a really awesome sigil with all types of fixings. Also, as you're wandering around your settlement, you can hear the various villagers talking or selling their goods. The voice acting is great, and the coolest part is you can zoom in and actually see them working in real time. Building a house? Zoom in and watch as they guide an ox over while it's dragging a log and then proceed to hammer down the foundations and put up the walls and roof. Every villager goes throughout their day and you can watch them at every step. From the darkness, while they bathe. Anyways, they all have their own names and families. Hell, even the animals have names, some being a bit questionable. But yes, the charm factor is off the charts and really adds to the immersion. The graphics aren't anything to sneer at either. Zooming in offers you wet, muddy streets with shiny puddles and damp rooftops. Zooming out showcases the realms in all their glory in a paperwork map format. It's all very appropriate and fitting for the theme and setting. But on to the actual game mechanics. Well, so far I think they're pretty great, for me anyways. You may consider this a first impression because I still have a lot to learn despite being so late to the party, but you manage your town by assigning various workers, or in this case families, to whatever jobs are needing to be filled. You slowly build up the city, your housing, and approval rating among your subjects in order to attract more settling families who can then be used for more tasks. Simple on the surface, but more complex than it would seem. It takes some getting used to and figuring out how to get things running smoothly, especially with keeping your people warm and fed through the winter. It's not particularly challenging on the easier settings, but there is a bit of a learning curve. Thankfully, the game has a pretty robust tutorial and tooltip system. There is also a help section with some good info to help you figure things out. So once things get going, you will begin to focus on producing various resources, or just focusing on a select few, or choosing to base your economy on trade. There's many options in that regard, as trading is a pretty powerful tool to wield to your pleasure. As you upgrade your housing, you are then granted points to invest in what's basically a skill tree for your settlement. This unlocks different buildings, bonuses, strategies, and more. You can speed up your farming by unlocking the plow, or boost your animal production by unlocking sheep breeding, things like that. Or you can even invest in orchards and start planting trees. Again, lots of options there. You also gain influence through your church. Tithing higher amounts of surplus goods will grant you more influence, which you can then use to press a claim on the surrounding territories. But be prepared to go to battle, as the lords of those realms won't take kindly to your encroachment. Unless you have that option turned off in the settings. Which I should mention here. The customization for each game is pretty impressive. You can set up a nice, chill, and relaxing playthrough where you just focus on building a town and expanding, or you can have a battle-trodden wasteland be your game of choice, focusing heavily on the combat side of things. And that's where the game seems to get much of its criticism among the gamers: the combat. The real-time strategy elements of the combat are fairly lackluster, but to me, it didn't feel bad. It felt like that's how it was supposed to be designed. Much like the Total War series, you kinda just throw your armies into the fray and let them work it all out. That's what I got from Manor Lords' combat. Sure, you can set different stances or tactics on your armies, but ultimately you just set up the battlefield and let them do their thing rather than micromanage every little movement. I feel that this allows you to focus more on what the game really seems to be built around, your settlements. But yes, if that was not the developer's intent, then combat would be a negative as it's not really engaging and has tons of room for improvement. Guess it's up to the player. I personally don't play city builders for any combat, so to me the combat in Manor Lords isn't bad at all. I can just send in my guys and forget. But going forward, I'd probably set up my games to not even have combat, to be honest. So if you're thinking of trying out Manor Lords for some hardy battlefield fun, you're most likely going to be disappointed. Just FYI. Outside of the combat, another major criticism I've seen is that the game is lacking content. I get that, and it's warranted, but I wasn't exactly expecting a lot of content in an early access game that just released and was made by one guy. And I bought it on sale, so I didn't pay the full price, although I would have no problem doing so because I want to support the dev and the future of the game. And from what I've seen, Greg is very good at communicating with the player base and being transparent, and when you first start up the game, he lets you know that this is still a definite work in progress. So it really comes down to your personal expectations. Are you looking for a heavily fleshed out game that will get you hundreds of hours of gameplay? Or are you, like me, wanting to support a single dev that put their heart and soul into a game that you can tell is a major labor of love? If you're in the former category, you may want to skip the early access and check the game out further down the road when it has more content. If you're in the latter category, I would say the game is worth picking up, as I have gotten a decent amount of hours in it and still have things to discover. I expect to get a good 30 or 40 hours out of it before things might seem to get repetitive. But do good city builders ever really get repetitive? I mean, I still go back and play Caesar 3 every once in a while, and I've played that shit since 1999, so who knows? But I will say that Manor Lords is not to be taken lightly. Yes, it has a way to go before full release, but there is a strong foundation here and a solid amount of content if you wish to support the dev. Yeah, he's probably made millions already if the majority of the people who wishlisted it bought it, and that's awesome if he did so, more power to Greggy Poo, but I feel there's enough content here to warrant a purchase if you're in the camp of indie dev supporter. But again, it's up to the individual. I just thought I'd give my first impression on why I broke the Patient Gamer guidelines and decided to support Manor Lords. And like always, I'll end the video with a taste of the game soundtrack, which I love. Composed by Elvin Shute, or Shut, I'm not sure, and Daniel Caleb through Pressure Cooker Studios, Manor Lords soundtrack sucks you into a medieval realm of soiled taverns, muddy roads, breezy forests, and clattering suits of armor. This track is called We Grow. Enjoy, breakdown, yeah. This has been Jarek Defiler, the not-so-patient gamer, basking in the revelry of that which is Manor Lords. You all have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on where you are. And go support some indie devs.